Project Lifecycle in Organization. Now we're going to move away from the pure human side and look at the project, its beginning and end, how that moves through. And projects do have a start point and a stopping point. That's part of our definition of a project. And at the same time, projects can occur in organizations, within greater groups. And we need to understand how that fit works. So this module will address those issues. First off, as I just mentioned, projects occur within organizations. Whether that's my social organization or the company I work for, there's an organization, and that project is a part of that organization. And as a project manager, I really need to understand the context in which I'm working so that I can move appropriately and make adjustments as needed to executing my project. Culture defines an organization. Culture is what is the feel of the organization. It's the DNA of the organization. How do things work there? And you've probably been at different places, whether those are social organizations or work situations or neighborhood community associations, and each one is different, and that's what I mean by culture. And that culture will affect how I execute a project. We could have the same two projects going on in two different organizations, and those projects would vary greatly in how they're executed because of the organizational context in which they take place. Let me give you some examples. Organizational culture, the norms, the values, and the customs of an organization. So how do people behave? How are people treated? Honesty. How does the organization feel? Those are part of culture. What does the organization value? You see that word values up there. What's important to the organization? Are the people important? Are the customers number one? Is the product the most important thing? Is our history the most important thing? Is our future the most important thing? What does this organization value? What's important to it? Functions of culture include its identity. So although that organization might have a name like Stanley Black & Decker or Constellation Energy or Exelon, that might be the name of it, but the identity, what is that company? What is it like? That's what its culture is about. How flexible is it? How responsive is it? Is it an organization that is very staid and steady and true and has been on a slow plodding trajectory for 200 years? That organization a project in an organization will have to be managed very carefully and expect that things will move slowly. There'll be many levels of approval, those type of things, as opposed to an organization such as a high technology company like Apple, Hewlett-Packard, or Oracle, where decisions need to be made quickly and move forward and make mistakes and make adjustments and move this direction. A very dynamic type project. Who has authority? Does the project manager have authority and is able to move forward with the project, or is that authority limited to certain areas? And then how much does the organization respect personal initiative? Do they expect project team members to find problems and address problems and make adjustments and move forward, or is everything brought back to the project manager for adjustment? So that organizational culture as a project manager, I need to be very aware of the rules of the road. That's the organizational culture. Organizational structure is an additional item, separate but related, and it's the hierarchy. It's how the organization is set up, who reports to who. As a project team leader, I may be borrowing people from many organizations, so those people may still report to their functional leader and to me. They may still have work responsibilities in their prior organization, or they may be 100% on the team, the project team. I may report to a functional manager, or I may report to a vice president, or I might report straight to the CEO. It's really important that I understand where my project fits and what my line of authority is. So where exactly then is the project embedded? An organization very often will have multiple projects occurring simultaneously, and each of those projects may be embedded at a different point in the organization. We may be creating a new newsletter which is being managed by the communications department. That's a functional project. The functional manager in communications has authority over that project. We may have another group that's developing a new product that is cutting edge for the organization, and that is reporting directly to the vice president. So different levels of reporting, different locations of projects. But the question for the project manager is, who maintains the resources? Who do I go to receive more resources when I need something? And who do I communicate with to explain what's going on with the project? Here's an example. Troy Manufacturing Company, you should recognize this. This is something of a traditional organization chart with Mike Eason as the president up at the top, and then a line of vice presidents there below him. And then underneath of those vice presidents, functional areas. And what we see with the green boxes are 3 projects that are occurring. And what we see is the benefits enhancement project, and that has a project coordinator rather than a project manager because it's a rather small project, and the functional manager of human resources is probably taking the real true leadership of the project. And that project coordinator may be just gathering reports, coordinating meetings, and doing more administrative type duties. And as you see the 2 people on that project team, they're both part of the HR department. So they're probably also in full-time jobs in HR, and they're supporting the project. So you could anticipate that this type of project may fall behind in its schedule because the people who are working on it got busy with an emergency in operations. So these type of projects embedded like that often will fall behind schedule, but they have advantages such as they have direct contact to the people who are experts in that functional area. So there's pluses and minuses with each of these. Let's move over here to the Super X project, and this has a full-time project manager on it. It also has 3 team members, and as we look at this team, there's someone from R&D, there's someone from marketing, and there's also someone from manufacturing. So although this project is attached to the R&D department, it has borrowed resources from outside the department. It is somewhat matrixed with the rest of the organization. So that matrixing, we consider that when we've drawn resources from other functional areas. That often makes for a very dynamic and a robust project where we have input from many areas of the business. Over here on the side, we have another project, the Cosmic Particle Accelerator project. That must be something quite strategic to the organization because that project manager is reporting directly to the president. So when it comes to acquiring resources, setting priorities, making things happen, this project maintains a lot of power in the organization. And again, we can see that the team is matrixed. They're brought in either part-time or full-time from other parts of the organization. So that's some of the aspects we're going to look at in this module, is really to consider the project, the organization, and then how the 2 fit together. There are many organizational structures. There's functional organization, where we saw with the HR project. It's just embedded in that functional organization. There's matrixed project organizations, again, where we saw the resources are drawn from multiple places. And then there's what we call pure project organizations, and those would be groups I wasn't able to show you here, but this would be a group where that's all they do is projects, a construction company. They just move from one project to the next. So all of the resources in the company are grouped into projects under project managers, and those resources just move between projects, and everyone's assigned to a project essentially. And then there's what we're encountering now is the virtual organization. The virtual organization recognizes that we may have a project and a project team where the people never meet face-to-face. We might be using software engineers in India, we might be using hardware developers in China, and we have functional experts here in the United States. And the project brings all those people together using technology that allows them to complete the project without ever or with limited face-to-face contact, which brings in a whole host of other issues that we'll start looking at in this module. And then certainly most of us will probably be in hybrid organizations where there's a mix of these type situations going on. And I would argue that today almost every project has a virtual component where there'll be some resource, maybe that's materials I need to use or supplies or equipment, where they'll come from a project team resource that I will never meet. I'll do all my contact through the internet or through telephone or in some other way where there's no face-to-face contact. So we're seeing many, many combinations of these types of situations. So the key takeaway is know your organization, know your project and what its needs are, and then the rules of the road are how you'll interact within your organizational structure. What are the boundaries? What will constrain me? What walls will I bump up against? who is the project sponsor? Who is the person in our host organization who has said, yes, that project needs to be done, and I'll see to it that it gets done. So that would be the person the project manager will go to and follow up with and communicate with. It's really important to identify who that person is as things change, and if that person leaves the organization, what will be the impact on the project? There's another group we identify called the project stakeholders. That's a much larger group. That's essentially anyone who will be affected by the development and implementation of this project. So that may be outside customers, it might be neighbors of the facility, it may be government entities, it certainly includes the project team, the leadership of our own organization, and key people throughout our organization. So this project stakeholder group can be quite large, and we need to know who those people are and what information they're going to need and what inputs they'll provide to the project as we move forward. Very important group of people. So that's our module. Let's dive in. There's quite a few different aspects we're going to bring into play, but quite an interesting set, I believe, in this case.